This show is an exhibition of the works of mine that belong to the Astrup Fearnley Collection. And the earliest piece is from 2004, and the most recent piece is 2017, this one here behind me. And there are works from many of the years in between, mostly wall-based installations and paintings and one sculpture. The way that I arrive at choose the subject matter that I like to use for making art is different for each piece. Sometimes it's based in research, and sometimes it's a combination of research and the accumulation of materials through sort of serendipitous experience and other parts of life to create a grouping of images. Or like in the case of the Statue of Liberty painting, I was doing an exhibition about landscapes, and I found a hand-tinted postcard that was a hand-tinted black and white photo of the Statue of Liberty, and the way that it had been tinted appealed to me because of a certain type of light that I was thinking about. So that's kind of how I ended up painting the Statue of Liberty, in these sort of colors that sort of obscure its regular resemblance and suggest that it was lit at night, but it's maybe a fiction, this image. Where I grew up in California, very often if you're going to work or going to see someone, you can drive on a very large freeway, and basically everybody is in the car by themselves and the windows rolled up, and it's very much a private, isolated experience, even though there might be thousands of people right next to one another. And the one way that people choose to communicate is like with some sticker, and maybe it's like about how they feel about their cat or Jesus, or like, I don't know, other people's bad driving, or I don't know. And so I've always been interested in this sort of like strange form of expression. And the original image of this is a magnet that you put on your car to make it look like your car had been shot with a gun. And I discovered it, a friend of mine brought it to me because he had been in Texas and he had found in like a store, a gas, where you get the gas. And he gave them to me because he understood my enjoyment of the bumper stickers and things. And so after a long time of thinking, I figured out a way to maybe enlarge this image with a silk screen and find a way to stretch it on this canvas, because I was very interested in the way that you could attach a violent content onto a very peaceful surface of like geometric abstraction. In 2005, I was thinking about O.J. Simpson, the famous American football player, and I was thinking about these sort of American men and this sort of violence against blonde-haired women, and I thought of de Kooning's painting of Marilyn Monroe as being sort of particularly violent as a painter towards a subject, which is just maybe my own interpretation. And so I originally made a piece that was a picture from a t-shirt of O.J. Simpson. And then it was a diptych with a little copy in black and white of de Kooning's Marilyn, and it was called Anger Management Diptych. In 2009, when I was doing this show here in the Astrup Fearnley, I made this painting here that says generous. And when I was making that painting, I sort of was teaching myself staining technique with oil paint. And when I finished that painting a little while later, I thought, oh, maybe I can revisit these Marilyn Monroe painting by de Kooning using the color that I from the oil paint and the staining technique, so that I could get the color as well as the black and white to delineate the lines. And so this was one of the first. I started out and I got 3 canvases, and I set them up, and I did them all, starting them all at once, thinking maybe one will come out okay, and I can throw away the other ones. And I kind of over time I started very slowly, and because the technique was still a little bit new, and then I made the first 3, and I was quite happy with each one of them, and then I thought, oh, okay, well then I have 3, and I think I named them the Anger Management Trilogy. And then a few months later, I felt this temptation to make more, and so I did. And then I kept making more, and I kept making more, because they're very fun to make, and they're to do the repetition of the gesture over and over became quite fun to see the little nuanced differences from one to the other one. And it was very pleasurable, and I had this idea that it would be like the closest I could ever come to understanding the feeling of being like a serial killer. I am interested in the 2 dominant languages of painting in a sort of post-European American tradition are the ones that I inherited are the language of pop art and expressionism. And it is, I always think of painting as a series of types of language and brush strokes, because they carry the baggage of what the people who'd used them before we're talking about and expressing. And when you invoke these languages, you continue a conversation that has been happening, and it's not linear, but it's a continuation nonetheless. And so with that painting, I've been very fascinated in the sort of automatic abstraction that happens with these sort of like rags and drop cloths from my studio, because they accumulate a certain texture and marks with no intention. It just happens over time. And I saved them. And I thought it would be interesting to combine them different years and different layers of the studio drop cloths together, because they span many, many years, each little piece. And the template I chose to use to include all these different parts was the map, because I thought it's an interesting way to combine an iconic field, which is the shape of the U.S., which is also an approximation and totally inaccurate also, and it's bent, and it's more of a symbol than it is anything real, even though it's real in our daily usage, because we all have a common understanding, at least in a technical aspect of it. And so in that way, it's a popular symbol. So I thought that attaching this sort of surreal, automatic expressionism with a popular shape that isn't really even a shape, it's just an idea, was an interesting way to come to try to reconcile these two dominant language of painting.